First of all, it never crossed my mind to be an entrepreneur. I always thought I needed to work for a corporate company and have benefits and have all these things,
Security.
all the security. It just never dawned on me.
Welcome, Monica. It is so great to have you here. I was so excited to see you on the list of podcasts we were going to do. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I was so excited to be on here, and we're neighbors, so I was like, I don't really have an excuse, do I? I got to show up.
Yeah, in your living room,
Walking
almost in your
distance.
living room. We could have made that happen. We love to open up these conversations by starting with a question. We're going to get in the Wayback Machine and we're going to travel back in time to your high school years
Oh.
and your senior year, and you're facing that moment of, okay, I'm making the leap into adult life. What was your vision at that point for your life? Did you have one?
So I was living in Dallas, Texas. That's where I went to high school. I had a great time. I really did. I was a social butterfly. I went to a large public high school in North Texas. We had like 700 or 800 in my graduating class. It was kind of Friday Night Lights-esque. I got good grades, but I wasn't like applying to Harvard, let's put it that way. It is a random story, but my mom actually and my grandma suggested that I apply to a school in Maryland called Mount St. Mary's. 1,200 students total, and I'd never been to Maryland. And a family friend, a priest who had married my grandparents, was based there. They just thought it would be the perfect fit for me. I applied and I got an academic scholarship. I just went, and I didn't even visit.
The current take you.
Did you
Yes.
know what
Love
kind
it.
of career you wanted to have or anything at that point? Or you were just kind of like, I'm supposed to go to college?
I didn't. When I was trying to sort out what I wanted my major to be freshman year, I ended up picking nursing because my dad suggested nursing. So I did start as a nursing major, and I quickly found out that chemistry and biology were not for me. I realized I didn't like hospitals. I switched to business, and that's what I really had actually wanted to do the whole time.
When Monica and I met, you were introduced by Dan from Bardstown Bourbon. And he said to me, "Do you know Monica Wolfe?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay, you guys just need to meet." So she and I meet for coffee, and it was like this instant simpatico. And you talking about your young adult life is so much like mine. I just kind
Yeah.
of took the current as well, which turned out beautifully for me.
There is something about going where the wind blows you.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you know yourself really well, it's okay to do that. If you
Mhm.
don't know yourself and you're going where the wind blows you, that could get dicey.
That could get bad.
Yeah. Well, I think you learned it as you were going, right? Like, I would say I was on the other end of like determined spectrum and I wanted to be an entrepreneur, except for I didn't even know what that freaking meant at that point. I just got lucky that I sort of figured that out. I don't expect my niece and nephew in high school to really know what they want to do, even though we keep asking them. It's like, why do we keep asking them? They don't need to know yet. They're not old
I
enough
I
to
know
know
we got to
yet.
come up with
know,
better
you
questions for
barely-
Yeah.
young people. And what do
Yeah.
you want to do? What do you want to study?
You have to stay flexible. I was just telling Maggie I'm meeting my husband in New York this evening, and he's already there, and we don't have plans because I just think you miss a lot of things when you are like so set on like I have to be at this restaurant at this thing, and your whole thing's booked out, and then you don't see the
Mhm.
things that are right in front of
Spontaneity.
you.
I think that there is a misconception about entrepreneurs and even female entrepreneurs about being like really super type A, when in fact, I actually think more of us are creative. We're not necessarily type B, like we're dominant and we have ideas or we're knowing where we're going, but we're not necessarily like the, we've opened ourselves up to those opportunities, right? Like, I don't, I have an assistant for those things, right? Because I don't want to deal with those super
Mhm.
detailed things. I want to
Yeah.
be open and free and open to the opportunity and the wind, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so you study business. Then what?
did. Yeah, so I studied business management. They had an MBA program. I completed it in a year instead of 2. And I don't really sugarcoat things, especially my story. Not that I've like made it, but for where I am, it's not like I was a straight A student or knew what I wanted or anything like that. The truth was, senior year, I started interviewing for jobs. And when I walked in the Career Center, there was a big poster for Northrop Grumman, which is a defense contractor. Again, I was in school in Maryland. And my dad was a Marine. He was a captain in the Marine Corps. Looked that company up, and because of my dad's connection to the Marine Corps and kind of my affinity for it, a business role at a company like that seemed exciting to me and to support the military. So I looked at the openings, and they had a professional development program for new college grads, and it was 6-month rotations in business areas within the company for 2 years, and then you figure out what your favorite one, or you pick a spot and then you go permanent. I was like, that is so perfect. So I applied and I got an interview, and I completely bombed the interview. So I didn't get it. And then I realized that I was not ready. I just was like, I'm not ready for the real world. I probably should have been in the Career Center my junior year. So I was also just very nervous about joining the real world. I just did not feel prepared. And so I was like, I need to stay here another year.
So I guess I'll get an MBA.
I was like, I'm not ready. I need to stay here.
Another degree.
And so I'm like, I'm actually a numbers person more than a words person. And that was the deciding factor between staying at Mount St. Mary's and getting my MBA versus applying and going to law school. I could do my MBA, and it just, for financial reasons, for numbers over words reasons, for some ease. And I actually applied and I got a graduate assistant role. So that helped pay for the MBA. And then I got a job that summer at TGI Fridays in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Was that your first entrance into like the hospitality world?
It was actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first time working at a restaurant. It was hard work, and it was really, really important work for my growth.
So then tell us how you got from, graduating with your MBA to where you are now. How did you get into the spirits industry?
That's a good story.
Okay.
I know this story, so I can't wait.
Yeah, so I reapplied to Northrop Grumman the fall that I was getting my MBA. I got the same interviewer that had interviewed me the year before.
But you did a shot before you went in.
No, but I was ready, and I connected with her. And really, that's what I love about business. All it is just people and human interaction. And she and I connected on a book that I had just read, actually, of all the things. It's called The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. And so I got the job, and I ended up, I guess, somewhere in that interview telling her that I was interested in international business, and she was the manager for the international business department. And so one of my rotations, I ended up doing a 6-month rotation in her department. Cheryl Gilday, we're still friends on social media.
That's pretty great.
And so anyway, I did get that job. I worked there. I did the professional development program. It was awesome. I worked there for 4 or 5 years in Baltimore. I had great mentors there. There was a thing called Connect 1NG, and once a month they would put together, an executive would have a lunch meeting, and there were like 12 slots, and that was it. So when they sent the email out, you had to like immediately say if you wanted to attend. And it was like my thing where I really wanted to hear what they had to say, hear their story. And I always made sure, and actually one of my friends, she worked for Connect 1NG, so I would always be like, hey, can I get into the lunch? So I went to a lot of those, and that's where I met my mentor, John Johnson. He was one of the luncheons, and I went to a lot of them, and I listened, and it was all good, but sometimes you just connect with someone. And he said at the end of it, I'm busy, but from 6 to 7 a.m., I'm always in my office. He loved boiling hot coffee. And he was like, the coffee will be hot. And if any of you want to come chat from 6 to 7, I'm there every morning. And I am not a morning person, but I went. And that's how we created our working relationship, because I would go in there, I'd ask him questions. He'd ask me what I wanted to do. And then what he ended up doing was, whenever I would say something that I was trying to figure out or interested in, he would be like, do you know XYZ? And of course I didn't know anybody in the C-suite, but he would send an email. I'd never leave a meeting without something to, like a suggestion of something to read and an introduction to someone. And he would make an introduction, and then I would go meet with them and get to learn about their story. Over the 4 or 5 years that I worked there, through this little network of introductions that he had helped create, I was able to meet and hear the story of almost all of the executives on both the business side and then at the engineering side, because it was an engineering company, and then there was a business side of it, obviously, because it's a business. So I was able to go around, and what I determined ultimately was that was not the place for me. I was not an engineer, and I did not have military experience. It was a great company, but again, as the years went on, I was like, I think that this is not it.
It's a powerful and valuable lesson to be able to identify that, especially when you seemingly actually really loved a lot of parts about working there. And I think some common theme that we have heard from a lot of guests and even in observation of our own stories is, there's been a person that believed in me who started making those introductions. And I think as a person who has mentored and has been a mentee and been a mentor, I always remember when I make a suggestion to somebody and then they do it. Or I make a book suggestion and they follow up and they're like, I loved that book recommendation. That is like, oh, I'm willing to spend another coffee hour with them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they saw that in you as well.
Yeah. It's like, what are you willing to do? I mean, that's the entrepreneur's question. It's like, how bad do you want it?
So you made the jump from a corporate, like Department of Defense into spirits.
No. So there was one last stop. I was actually recruited in my LinkedIn. Somebody just kind of cold messaged me at Deloitte Consulting in Northern Virginia. And, when you hear the name Deloitte, I was like, ooh, that sounds cool. So then I prepared because Deloitte's known for their kind of interesting, different interviewing process. And I majorly prepared and I got the job. And so I moved to Arlington, Virginia, and I worked there for a year. So this was September of 2013 when I took that job. And I worked there for a year. And I was at one of my best friends from high school's wedding that following September in Dallas. And somebody asked me, like, oh, where do you live? And I'm like, Northern Virginia. And they're like, oh, do you like it? And I was like, not really. Like, I don't love it, no. So as it's like actually being said,
You were like, holy cow,
and
I'm
they're
unhappy.
like, salt of the earth, like, not Kentucky, Texas people, like just happy with like what their lives. And so they're just like, well, what are you doing there?
I was expecting you to say, yes, I'm fine.
How are you doing? I'm
Yeah.
fine. No, I go
You
into
start
it.
sobbing.
Yeah.
I like to go into it too. And so you were just honest. They were like, not good. So they were like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, so well then why are you doing that? And I was like, well, that's it. I gotta go. And so I actually put in to transfer from the Deloitte office in Virginia to the one in Dallas, because I was like, let me get to where I think I need to be location-wise, and then I'll figure out what I want to do next. So I packed up my car, moved to Louisville, and never left. And so,
Yay,
yeah, so I've been here,
Louisville.
and that was November of 2014. So we're at my 10-year anniversary of doing that. And so I worked remote with Deloitte, and I would be at one end of the kitchen table on my computer, and my dad, who was a consultant in the whiskey space, would be on the other end of the table. And then one day he was working on M&A deal and spreadsheets, and I like walked over and like, looked over his shoulder because he needed help, and it just like hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, why would I be doing this when I could be helping him?
Did he have his own business at this point as a whiskey consultant?
Yeah, why
Yes.
consult for Deloitte when you can consult for Dad?
Right?
Yeah.
And he was a consultant. And you think back, and this seems so obvious, like, oh, well, you moved back to work with your dad. No, I did not. It never crossed my mind. It didn't. Because first of all, it never crossed my mind to be an entrepreneur. I always thought I needed to work for a corporate company and have benefits and have all these things,
Security.
all the security. It just never dawned on me.
You landed in Louisville, Kentucky, unexpectedly, working across the kitchen table with your dad. He's doing whiskey consulting, and you're like, why am I not doing this? And so you start helping your dad with whiskey consulting. I mean, you've been doing whiskey consulting for years, but it's like you're like the entrepreneur. You're the hot whiskey entrepreneur right now. Tell us about how did you become the hot whiskey entrepreneur?
He was a whiskey judge, and he invited me to come clean glasses. He asked if I could come be a fly on the wall and clean glasses. He would let me listen to calls. He BCC'd me on every email. I mean, I was a sponge, a literal sponge for 2 years. And I was just able to learn the business. And my whole life, as he was, working and building himself, I learned how to broker bulk whiskey. I learned how to write business plans for craft distilleries. I learned how to write white papers for banks on the state of the whiskey industry. I learned how to help raise capital for whiskey distilleries. I just learned all that by watching and listening and being involved and honestly doing all the spreadsheets and Word documents. And I was basically like
Do the
his
numbers.
secretary and assistant. And that's the best way to learn. You're doing it. So for a long time, I just was, learning. And then I met Ashley Barnes, who's now my business partner. That was August of 2016. So I left Deloitte in March of 2015. I met Ashley on a tour at Four Roses in August of 2016. And I had spent so much time at distilleries because I interned also at Buffalo Trace when I was in college. I would come home and just I didn't have friends, so I would just go work there. So I'd spent enough time at distilleries and at craft distilleries to know who the doers were. And she was in the lab, and I'm like, she's doing all the stuff. She's the one. She's tasting the distillate every morning off the still. She's doing the blends. She was trained by Jim Rutledge and Brent Elliott. And I just thought she hung the moon. And I put her name in the hat to be a whiskey judge at an event that I was working. And then she and I met that following January. So she didn't remember me. I remembered her that August, but I didn't actually meet her and become friends with her until that January at the judging. So January of 2017. And she was just like, I'm up for a promotion in April. I don't know if I'm going to get it. If I don't, I kind of want to make some moves. And she didn't know anything about the craft space. I mean, when you're at a big distillery in Kentucky, you don't, maybe now, but 10 years ago, you weren't thinking about craft distillers or the boom of the craft industry at that time. So she didn't know. She's like, I wouldn't know who to apply to, what I could do, how my services could benefit. And I'm like, I know how they could benefit. I mean, she was QC. That is what every craft distillery really direly
desperately
needed.
need.
So when she called me after she didn't get the job promotion, I asked my dad if she could join us. And he said no. And I said, I'm going to start a company with her. And there was no falling out. There was no nothing. But I branched off from Wolfe Consulting. I started the Spirits Group with her.
Hey, Dad, I'm going to compete with you.
But the thing was that there are
wasn't a lot,
so few people that do what we do. It was there was no competition whatsoever. I mean, there was more business than we could ever both do in our whole lifetime. So that is how our company got started, the Spirits Group. We consulted with craft distilleries around the country. She from a production and QC standpoint, and me from a strategy, operations, finance perspective. And so often it was just such a holistic way to come in and help. We basically would always say we do everything except really marketing and distribution. Sales and distro, it's a whole nother beast. And so that just was not either of our backgrounds. Sometimes they would just work with her. Sometimes they would just work with me. Sometimes they use both of our services. And it was really fun and great, and working with entrepreneurs and people that are so passionate. And I was just so happy to be working with people that were so excited about what they were doing, because I didn't have that in corporate America. But as the years went on, it became clear we had so many calls all the time. And a big part of my job, and a big part when you're a consultant, is vetting clients.
Working with the right people.
We're working with the right people. If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit for anybody. And so it was too much time spent on that. And I'm like, we're either going to need to hire people or do
Mhm.
something else. So we decided to go quality over quantity and just pick a handful of clients and go the distance with them. And so what we ended up doing was we picked about 3 or 4 non-distilling producer brands that we'd been with since inception and just help them grow. And we've got 2 clients at our distilleries that we've been with now 7 years. We're obviously not gonna we're still helping them. But one of the things to help scale when you're a non-distilling producer, you don't have a home base. You don't have a distillery, you don't have a brand home typically. And so you're using third-party facilities for bottling, and that was a real issue. And so became an issue for us
Lose control.
Yeah.
because, yeah,
Yeah.
like their
Can't control the
problems.
The
process.
QC,
Yeah.
the bottling, all
Yeah,
that.
we're like, this is not gonna work. And so in April of 21, I was introduced to Bob Cutter from the Cutter Group. He had kind of built a new mousetrap and had a rickhouse concept and was having trouble breaking into the space. And because I was a consultant with clients all over the country, they thought, all right, well, what if, maybe there's a distillery in Tennessee or Indiana or something. And so I loved the rickhouse concept. I thought they had a great product, but I was like, you should probably build one before I sell it because I want to see it. You should see it. So that's how that idea came about. So it's like I have bulk whiskey clients that can store their barrels there, and then you can build a showroom. So we went from building one rick house to now we have 108 acres in Shelbyville, Kentucky. There are 7 rick houses. Each one holds 20,000 barrels. 4 are built, 3 are coming next year. And by the end of 2025, we'll have 140,000 barrels being stored on site in their state of the art rick houses. They're so beautiful. They're so well done. They had been brought in 6 years ago to remediate rick houses around the state. And then we're asked to build one. And they're like, well, we'd love to, but we have this list of 19 things that we learned from remediation and we would do it differently. And so all of those adjustments and lessons learned are in these rick houses, and
Wow.
it's beautiful. And so then also, since they're a construction company, I was like, oh, let's do a blending and bottling facility. So there's a 33,000 square foot bottling facility. We're finalizing it now. I mean, it's complete, but all the equipment is being set and the piping's put in. And so in the next like 30 to 60 days, we'll be up and running.
That's so cool. And
Amazing.
you've identified such a specific niche need in the market that you spent many years in as a consultant, and then you're fulfilling that. And so you went from kind of an entrepreneur in the consulting space to still being an entrepreneur in the consulting space, but now you are a partial owner of these very physical, very large amount of
Big
land
assets,
and
lots of assets.
lots of
Yeah.
assets, a bottling company. I mean, that is so neat.
Yeah. And you know what I think about sometimes is consulting with the craft distilleries and seeing those people. The craft distilling industry, again, is only 10 to 15 years old. I mean, that is such a young industry. So these people weren't doing that their whole lives. They had other careers and other things too. So as consultants, my dad and I would come in and we're helping them with their financial figuring out how to make it. So I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it.
You're
So
showing
yes.
them how to do it.
well,
Why not do it yourself?
exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it was like inspiration from them, inspiration from the craft distilling space. The whiskey industry is such an awesome place to work. It's very, very collegial. Everybody helps each other.
Yeah,
It's
heard that.
just
Collaborative.
It's collaborative.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Everybody wins.
And so I love what I do. I would do it for free. I truly I just enjoy it. I still do numbers. You think about it, and I'm still in the spreadsheets. I'm still doing all of that stuff. I was always in project finance, profitability, how to make it work. So it's like, how do you make a distillery profitable? How do you make a whiskey brand profitable? It's just a different application.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I think we see that in a lot of areas of business that you can apply it across, but now you found the thing. You let the wind blow you to the thing where you have met passion and some really interesting entrepreneurial things and been able to blend them together for
if you will.
if you will, if you take the whiskey analogy and the fact that you blend whiskey. So I want to know, what are some of the brands that you represent? What bottles of craft distillery should we be out there looking for? You brought us a bottle here, Lucky 7. Tell us about the bottles you brought us.
So Lucky 7 is one of our brands. EJ Curly is another. Two Worlds Whiskey is another. And then there's another one that'll be launching at some point. And all of these, the founders or people approached us with their idea, and then we were the industry partner that brought it to life. So I love Lucky 7. The two founders, Michael and John, actually reached out to my dad, and he was notorious for being hard to get a hold of. And for whatever reason, they caught him on the right day, and they hit it off. He flew out to LA, they met, and the project just kind of came to life. And so we helped them source their first barrels. Ashley blended it. I kind of stepped in and did all of the stuff that my dad would typically do, but he's the one that first found them, or they found him. It's a great brand. The two guys, they're just so passionate. They're so enthusiastic. They're so hardworking. I mean, they have built it with our help. They always listened. Amazingly enough, people will reach out for consulting help and then not want to listen. It's very interesting.
She said she hasn't mentored earlier in
Yeah.
the conversation.
Except every
This is
client.
what that's called.
Except every client she has.
Yeah, they just happen to pay
Yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this one launched in March of 2020, which was interesting timing, but they actually were really, really good a digital brand. So they had great social media, great website presence, good online shipping. And so we were able to grow, and it's been a really fun journey with them. And so we're actually working to bring them in-house at the blending house, actually.
Nice.
Nice.
Roll it up.
Congrats.
What I hear is like a theme of not just letting the wind blow you, but also like creating these partnerships with people throughout your whole journey that have turned into really neat opportunities. There's just so many different ways that people come to entrepreneurship and how they become a renegade. And you're building something that's new, unique, and different within an industry that's existed forever. We wanted to get more into the depths of your entrepreneurial journey and where you're headed. So tell us what you're building.
Ashley Barnes and I are partners in a company called the Spirits Group. She and I partnered with another group called the Cutter Group, and that partnership is for an actual physical facility. So historically, we had just been working as consultants. We worked remote with distilleries all over the country, whiskey brands. They were just in the middle of trying to launch a new vertical in their business, a barrel storage solutions. We're trying to break in, sell the solution to a heritage distillery, and just having a little bit of trouble getting some traction. We're thinking, all right, well, maybe if we can't break in Kentucky, there might be an Indiana or a Tennessee distillery that could use some higher volume storage space. So it originally was just going to be kind of another client where I would try to find good matches for them. So that's how the idea started. And then it kind of grew. Like if we build a rick house, maybe just next to it, we could build a blending and bottling facility. It would also be great because usually if there's storage, at some point it's going to need to get bottled. So have a one-stop shop. And as it evolved, we've ended up with 108 acres in Shelbyville, which is about 40 miles north of Louisville, and a 30,000 square foot blending and bottling facility. So
Wow, that's a lot.
and it's
Wow.
built, and we just completed the blending facility. We should be doing our first run here in the next probably 2 weeks. It's awesome because some of the brands that we've been working with since they started are now going to be able to be based out of that location. We can host people there on the brand's behalf. We can have retailers and distributors come on site for barrel picks and just brand experiences.
And this is Cutter as in the Koetter,
Yes.
Cutter, the Indiana construction. Yeah.
And so they're Southern Indiana, Kentucky.
And so what made them want to go from doing general construction, commercial construction, to developing out a product that was specifically for rickhouses?
So they were actually approached in 2018 to do remediation on rickhouses. So because they had fall protection, they had their cousin's own cutter woodworking. So they had a lot of the tools that would be needed to go into a facility, a rick house that needed
Shoring up.
shoring up. And so they were approached, and that's a tall order. I mean, can you imagine the liability of, we just need to,
The
these
millions
poles
of
are,
dollars of bourbon hanging out in
Yeah.
these
Don't
bother the
onshore facilities.
barrel.
but make these trade these poles out, these posts out. So they said yes and went into kind of like a deep study of how to stabilize them
So they don't fail.
so they don't fail. And so it was Beam, Brown-Forman, all these heritage brands that would hire them in. And so they did that for 6 years. And eventually, sure enough, they were asked to finally build one. And they said, well, we've got this list of, I think it was like at least 15 items that they would do differently. They had an in-house engineer and they got to work. These are all the best practices. These are the things we would avoid. And they came up with this concept.
That's so unique. And then, so here you have this construction group who've gotten deeply involved in how a rick house is made. And then in comes you and your business partner who have almost done consulting only, where you might broker bourbon and you might, consult a private brand about blending, a lot in the bourbon space, but you were doing it for a fee as a consultant. And now all of a sudden you all have overlapped and made a wholly new business model and business. Kind of talk about what that transition has been like for you all as entrepreneurs, just the million things that you've had to learn in that process.
I had consulted for years with my dad. He had executed. That's how you have the experience and the knowledge base to even become a consultant. Because I had watched him do it and then learned how to consult with him, I was qualified to do it. But I still had that, I want to do it.
Your father had done it within another company, though. Or had he done it on his own also?
No, he never did it on his own.
He decided, hey, I'll do this on my own. Watch me.
He liked working for companies, if that makes sense. Like, there's a difference between being an operator, maybe one or two from, the owner, but he operated and executed, but he didn't start it.
Didn't own it.
It's a different animal. And it's a different personality, I think. I wanted to start something. And we had worked with so many entrepreneurs in the craft distilling space that I was so used to now seeing people starting something and the risk that they took and how to do it and how to make it successful. And I was kind of like, well, if they can do it, I can definitely do it. He was a little more risk averse, though. Even still, having helped them all do it, he's like, yeah, but are you sure you want to, do that? I'm like,
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So it's a completely different. Oh, so back to the consulting. That was the other thing. It was very transactional and it was fun and I enjoyed it for the time that I was doing it. But after a while, it's like, I do want to build something. I want to build something that's completely our own idea, our own concept.
Well,
because
and watch it like it's like watching a baby grow.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're helping people have babies.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
but you can't tell them how to raise it. I mean, you tell them how to raise it, but you can't raise it.
Yeah, they're
You're
going to go
just
do
like,
it the way you
they're
want.
gonna
You're like,
do
I
what
wouldn't have
they
done that.
want.
So I want my own baby to raise.
Yeah.
How did you determine that you weren't focused on actually the making of or making a brokering or
creating a brand?
Making a brand wasn't what you were looking for, but instead you wanted to create this infrastructure project, really.
Yeah, so I think there are two parts to that. I think the first thing is that when I first started even consulting, I was always looking for what's an area in this industry where the things that I know I can bring value, that there's some sort of gap that I could fill. Because at the end of the day, if it's not something that I'm good at, it's not gonna work in the long run. So I think that I was doing finance in my previous career. Same thing with pro forma development and whiskey brand financials. There was a huge need. The reason that we built the facility is because I actually wanted to build brands, and we are building brands. We could not grow and scale these brands working out of a third-party facility.
You kept
It
finding
was
that problem.
complete. I always say it was a bottleneck, no pun intended. It truly was. So we couldn't scale. We were having issues with consistency, label blending. So it's like if Ashley's creating these blends and we're having a handhold, making sure it's blended correctly, at the end of the day, we needed to bring everything in-house. So it was, what's something that we're good at, and what is a need or a gap that we can fill? And that's how it ended up happening. It wasn't that I wanted to build a facility. It was just that was necessary for us to build what we were building.
You want to control the quality. You want to control the speed. You want to control all the details. Why outsource it or struggle to make it work?
So partnering with a construction company, I mean, it doesn't get better than that. They had this product that is a superior rickhouse product. Innovation and the need for competition is hugely important in any industry, but also I think in whiskey, just because it's been such a
tradition, stabilized thing.
Well, it's been the same people have been doing it for so long. And there's a lot of kind of romance about that, and it's kind of cool and fun, and that's part of the allure of the industry.
Yeah, my granddaddy built rickhouses like this, and my daddy built rickhouses like this, and
yeah, but at some point you do need to change, and change is hard, but it's necessary.
Plus, you partnered with someone who doesn't really know what you know.
Exactly.
And if I'm going to partner with someone, I would like for them to not monkey with what I do. You do what you do.
Yeah.
Let me do what I do.
Yeah, so that's my point. So they're a construction company. I don't know anything about construction. They needed to break into the bourbon space though. And there's a need, there's a legitimacy. It's about relationships. There has to be kind of that like kind of walk them into the industry. And so that's what part of the value is that Ashley and I brought to them. And so it's been kind of the perfect match.
They continue to retain the IP on the rickhouses that they developed. Like, what does the business structure look like? Because you had a partnership that was the consulting partnership. Now you have, I presume, a new entity and these partners. What does the business look like from a structural
legally?
So my company, the Spirits Group, is in a joint venture partnership with the Cutter Group. So it's a 50-50 joint venture. Part of what their goal is to grow that vertical of their business. If we have a facility that's essentially a showroom for these rickhouses, we bring other distilleries on site, we start to get more foot traffic, and it's actually happened where they landed their first contract. So they're building 30 rickhouses at a large Kentucky bourbon distillery.
30.
Yeah, and so that's what I feel I brought to their table, and what they bring to mine is the knowledge of real estate.
Build 7
construction,
rickhouses. Yeah,
build
their
your business.
balance sheet.
Yeah.
Helping us build our business and have a place to grow and scale.
Amazing. So how has this new venture changed your business? Like, are you still consulting? Or are you like, I really want to grow this baby?
It's become pretty clear to me that our focus needs to move away from consulting and just to what we're doing here. So I'm the CEO of the blending house now. We have the Spirits Group, obviously. It's the entity in the partnership. It will always be, because there are some side ancillary things. I don't broker bulk whiskey regularly, but sometimes that comes across my desk. And there are just some things that I will continue to operate the Spirits Group. But we've got a team. There will be 4 or 5 core brands that will be headquartered there. We essentially handle the back office for them for a fee. And so we have 2 distillery clients that we've been with since we started 8 years ago. We're not actively consulting. We're building and growing
a new
our
company.
own company.
Nice.
And how has that changed you as an entrepreneur? I mean, and as a person, this new type of venture?
There's a leadership role that I've had, But I was never in charge of employees in the way that I am now.
I
And
know where this is going.
yeah, it's just it's a different animal. It really is. When you're responsible for the livelihoods of people and their families,
It's heavy.
it's sobering.
What
Yeah,
does that
it's just-
employee count look like right at the moment? I mean, because you all have gotten your rick houses up and going and you're moving and building into a real business. What does that look like even in the last 6 months? How much have you grown?
We have 5 barrel rollers, and then we have our production manager, Matt King, and our assistant production manager, Harris Smith. And so that's a team of 7. There are 7 of them on the production side. We actually just hired our bottling manager, Dave Edmonds. And so that's 8 people. And then we've got Ashley, we've got our national sales director, Polly Ray. We have an accountant, Christina.
And you've been growing. It sounds like some of them are coming from really, like if you talk about Weller and Blanton's, they're making a big leap from big brands to a startup. And
Yeah.
that it's pretty cool that you've been able to instill that kind of confidence and desire to be a part of what you're creating.
It's very gratifying, I will say, to be able to provide a job opportunity and a place to work where people are just building what we want from the ground up. But there's a very, very cool energy about what we're creating, and we enjoy each other's company, and everybody's very hardworking. And so we're just really sensitive and take our time with who we add, because
Absolutely. You got to protect your team.
you want to protect it. And so people are really excited to be building something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Those
so
early
we have
stages
it's just a matter of executing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're kind of slowly bringing in those experienced people. And it's fun. I mean, it
Mhm.
really is.
Do you mind talking about revenues?
No?
Great. I'd love to know just kind of how your growth.
Yeah, I was going for
Yeah,
that next
let's hear
too,
the
yeah.
hockey stick.
So, especially when you're building. So, it's a ton of capital out because you're buying the property, you're buying the materials, and you're constructing it. And the revenue model is based off 3 streams: the rickhouse revenue, the bottling and blending revenue, and the services that we provide for the back office, and the brand revenue, essentially. Revenue doesn't come in from the rick house until the rick house is built. We started construction in January of 23. By the end of 2025, we'll have all 7 rick houses built and full, which is great, but it's taken time.
It's more going out than in.
There's a lot more going out
But once
than
you
in.
build them,
Once
then
we
it's
built
just
them, it's
revenue.
great. It's a great revenue
Yeah.
stream, and it helps to stabilize all of the other things. That's a very consistent revenue stream. That's the anchor to this whole project, quite frankly. But it's the whole, like, you build it, and then guess what? We can only unload 4 or 5 trucks a day. So even though you have 20,000 spaces to fill, you can't fill that. It takes
Overnight.
You can't fill it overnight. So that's kind of been something that's consistent. For example, we started a rick house. It was assembled. They're modules, so they're assembled off site, and then they're constructed or put together once they arrive on site, just kind of like Lincoln Logs. We can get into like the actual
That's so
mechanics
cool.
of why these rick houses are so different. But then it was a really snowy, wet January, February. So you think you're going to have some revenue coming in, but
Delayed.
it was a
Mhm.
delay in construction. So all of those things,
Things that you're now managing in a different way
Yeah.
than before. And you had to raise money to do, I mean, when you have that level of capital expense, right? The beauty of this being Kentucky and them being rick houses is that some of this is pretty bank financeable, but you also raised a decent amount of money.
So we actually did all bank financing.
Wow, that's awesome. I knew that, like, because of that being a very clear capital structure, that there was a lot of
A lot of
financing.
collateral here. Well, the rick house, it's ours
Yeah.
if you don't pay.
Blending and bottling facility, that just always takes longer. Equipment delays,
Yeah.
inspections, all of that. So once that starts running, then revenue starts coming
In
in.
business, it's like that. To me, it's like that uncalculated thing of time. If we have a couple of bad months in business, right, it's easy to just be like, oh, we're going to make it up. But in my head, I'm like, this is just lost resource. Like
Mhm.
time is just a resource you have no control over.
Yeah.
And delays just make you crazy because you're like, yeah, we'll make it up. But at some level, no, there's a loss there that you'll never recoup.
It turns out you can't run a business without cash. And so
Yeah, good tip.
it's the time and cash that really hurts.
Time is going to work on your side
Yeah.
when you get these built.
Yes.
And that's
exactly.
it's like as soon as then the timer ends.
We just need to triage that time with cash.
Fill the gap with money.
Fill the gap
Shove
with
it
money.
in there.
There was some equity put in by the cutters and then bank debt. Part of the original business plan that I wrote was that there would be one brand that we would start. And just the current environment of the bourbon industry and space, I felt it's not a good time to launch a new brand, number one. Number two, we already have all these brands that we've launched that we have put time and effort and political capital and otherwise into. That's how this kind of shift started, where for a number of reasons, some of them just needed a little shot in the arm of cash. Some of them are just in a place where it's time to level up, where move on from like the founders phase into like actual back office and structured growth model. And we're bringing it more closely in-house.
So it shuffles the way you're playing your cards a little bit.
Yeah, but it also created a situation where it was additional capital needed that I did not originally plan for. So we are in a capital raise mode now. So creating a Class C shares. I've always said, I'm like, not all millions are equal. And it's so true. I would rather go without than partner or bring in the wrong investors.
I think that's very solid instinct from just years of being around people who raise money.
Some money is more expensive than other money.
And just not worth it. And so I'm being careful with who I approach and how we do this.
I know that there's a lot of entrepreneurs in our community who have consulting businesses and might be thinking about making the leap towards something more physical. And what is one piece of advice that you might have for them?
I think the number one thing is, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because it genuinely is a void that needs to be filled? Or are you doing it because you just want to, or you're bored with what you're doing? Because anything other than there's a need is probably not a good idea. And I only say that because this is difficult. Entrepreneurial endeavor is not for the faint of heart. The amount of capital, the amount of dedication, the amount of you can't change your mind because it's already happening. You have to be so committed and you have to be so clear on the business reason. There's more at stake than there is consulting because you don't have overhead.
Yeah, I don't think people think about the loss of flexibility in another way. Like they think, right now I'm only trading my time for money. It'd be great if I was trading someone else's time for money or this product for money. And instead you lose a different type of flexibility. And that is of ideas or what you can transition to. I think that's fantastic advice.
It can sometimes be a fantasy. Oh, I'm going to have employees. They're going to do the work and I'll be in charge. And there are advantages to that. But also it's like literally they're riding on your back now. It's not like you're riding on their back. You have to make the business pay for their salaries and take care of them and give them raises and
help them grow. We're only adding people that are really great team members. They naturally have ambition and they want to progress. I never want to be a person that's holding someone back or keeping their role stagnant. I don't ever want them to leave, but I want them to also evolve. Yeah.
I struggle with that. How do you keep creating opportunities for people to level up?
Different business models allow for it in different levels. When you are making a transition into this type of entrepreneurship, it is a wholly different type and it needs different skill sets.
The structure that's needed for the organization and for the people to feel secure in their role, that it's clearly defined. So that, okay, I've accomplished this, that I could move to the next. If it's all kind of nebulous, then they don't know how to level up. So it's putting a little bit more structure to the business.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, your advice, and telling us your story. we appreciate you taking this time to come back and really dive into what you're currently building, because it is just so unique and new and innovative in an industry with a lot of history. And so it's fun to see an entrepreneur rising up and bringing something wholly new. So
Young.
thank you.
Young gun. I love it.
Yeah, love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.